My boyfriend always keeps bringing up how perfect his ex was and he even suggested I take tips from her. So, I dump him in the exact same way his ex did. I, 28F, met my boyfriend, 26M, about 18 months ago at a mutual friend's barbecue. The connection was instant, he was smart, funny, and we shared similar interests in outdoor activities and traveling. Things progressed naturally, and within a few months, we were officially dating. The first 6 months were amazing. We traveled together, tried new restaurants, and spent quality time with each other's friends and family. Everyone commented on how well we complemented each other. But around the 7-month mark, things started to change. It began subtly at first, occasional comments about his ex and how she used to handle certain situations. At first, I didn't think much of it. People sometimes reference past relationships, right? But then the comparisons became more frequent and increasingly detailed. During dinner one evening, he mentioned how his ex always knew exactly what wine to pair with each dish. When we were planning a weekend getaway, he reminisced about how his ex would create detailed itineraries weeks in advance. Even during simple moments like watching TV together, he'd slip in comments like, "My ex had this amazing way of giving shoulder massages while we watched movies." I tried to have an honest conversation with him about how these constant comparisons made me feel. He apologized and promised to be more mindful. Things improved for about 2 weeks before he fell back into the same pattern. But what really got to me was when he started suggesting I should learn from his ex's approach to relationships. "You know," he said one evening while we were having dinner at his place, "my ex had this great way of showing affection. She would leave little notes around the apartment with things she loved about me. Maybe you could try something like that." Another time, after a minor disagreement about household chores when he stayed over at my place, he said, "My ex and I had this system where we divided tasks based on our schedules. It worked perfectly. Maybe we should try her approach." The breaking point came during a dinner with our friends. Someone asked about our plans for the upcoming holiday season. Before I could answer, he jumped in. "Well, my ex had this amazing tradition where she'd surprise me with a weekend getaway every Christmas. She'd plan everything down to the smallest detail." He then looked at me and added, "Maybe you could get some tips from her about holiday planning." Our friends looked uncomfortable, and I felt completely humiliated. Later that night, I asked him more about his ex and their breakup. That's when he revealed something that made everything click into place. His ex had ended their 3-year relationship by gradually becoming distant over a month, then taking him to their favorite restaurant, where she calmly explained that she had outgrown the relationship and needed to move on. According to him, it was the most mature and considerate way to end things. The way he described it, with this mixture of admiration and lingering attachment, made me realize 2 things. First, he wasn't over her. And second, he was subconsciously trying to mold me into her image. But what struck me most was how he kept praising her method of breaking up with him, calling it respectful and thoughtful. That's when I decided to give him exactly what he seemed to want, a breakup just like his ex had done. I spent the next few weeks carefully planning every detail, making sure to mirror her approach perfectly. I became slightly distant but not obviously so, maintaining our routine but with subtle changes, and finally made a reservation at what had become our favorite restaurant during our relationship. During those weeks of planning, his behavior only reinforced my decision. He continued with his comparisons, seemingly oblivious to how inappropriate they were. When I bought him a gift, he mentioned how his ex always knew exactly what to get him. He talked about how his ex had learned to cook authentic Italian dishes from her time studying abroad. It was like living in the shadow of a ghost. The weekend before our planned dinner, he reached a new level. We were at a friend's engagement party, and he spent nearly 20 minutes telling a group about how his ex had accepted a proposal from her new boyfriend. He had found out through social media and couldn't stop talking about how creative and romantic her fiancé's proposal was. "She always did have a way with grand gestures," he said, giving me a pointed look. I maintained my composure through it all, playing the role of the understanding girlfriend while finalizing my plan. I made the reservation at the upscale French restaurant we had discovered together 3 months into our relationship. I chose a Thursday evening, just like his ex had done. I even made sure to dress in a way he had once mentioned his ex would dress for important occasions. The evening of the dinner, everything was perfect. The weather was mild, the restaurant was busy enough to provide ambient noise but not too crowded, and we were seated at a quiet corner table. He was in a great mood, having just received a promotion at work. As we settled in, he actually started telling me about how his ex had celebrated his last promotion with a surprise party. I let him finish his story, then smiled and said, "You know, all these months of hearing about your ex have been really enlightening." He looked surprised, probably because I'd never directly addressed his ex stories this way before. "What do you mean?" "Well," I continued, maintaining the calm, measured tone he had so often praised his ex for using, "I've learned a lot about what you value in a relationship. It's helped me understand exactly what needs to be done." His face lit up. I could tell he thought this was leading to some grand gesture, where I'd promised to be more like his perfect ex. "Really? That's so mature of you to take it that way." I always thought if you could just learn from some of her approaches. I have learned, I interrupted smoothly. I've learned that you're not over her. I've learned that you're trying to recreate your relationship with her through me. And most importantly, I've learned exactly how to end this relationship in a way you'll appreciate. The color drained from his face as realization began to dawn. What are you saying? I'm saying that, just like your ex did, I've realized I've outgrown this relationship. And just like her, I'm ending it in what you've described as the most mature and considerate way possible. At our favorite restaurant. With a calm explanation. His face went through a rapid series of emotions: shock, confusion, hurt, and then anger. This isn't funny, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm not trying to be funny, I replied, keeping my tone even. I'm doing exactly what you spent months praising, breaking up with someone at their favorite restaurant after a period of gentle distance, with a calm and rational explanation. Isn't this what you call the perfect way to end things? He gripped his wine glass so tightly I thought it might break. You are breaking up with me because I talked about my ex? No, I'm breaking up with you because you're clearly not over your ex, and you've spent our entire relationship trying to turn me into her. The constant comparisons, the helpful suggestions about how she would handle situations, the endless stories about her perfect qualities, it's not healthy for either of us. That's not fair, he protested. I was just trying to help our relationship grow, really, see? You're doing it right now, I interrupted. Even in this moment, you're defending her and her methods. You're so caught up in idolizing your past relationship that you can't even see how it's destroying your present one. He started to cry, but not the quiet, dignified tears he had described his ex handling so well. These were messy, mascara-running tears. You're being cruel, he accused. Actually, I'm being exactly what you wanted, methodical, calm, direct. Just like your ex. Isn't this the mature approach you've praised so many times? This is completely different. How? Because it's happening to you this time instead of being something you can romanticize in hindsight? He tried a different approach. All couples have issues they need to work through. We can fix this. Maybe we could try couples counseling. Did you and your ex try couples counseling? I asked, already knowing the answer. No, but, then I'll pass. I wouldn't want to deviate from the perfect breakup model you've been advocating. The waitress approached our table, noticed the tension, and quickly retreated. My now ex grabbed his purse and stood up abruptly. You planned this whole thing just to hurt me? He accused. No, I planned it to give you exactly what you've been glorifying. I even made sure to choose Thursday night, just like she did. I'm wearing the kind of outfit you mentioned she wore for serious occasions. I picked a nice restaurant, just like she did. I'm being calm and rational, just like she was. I'm giving you the perfect breakup experience you've talked about so much. The only difference is that this time, you're experiencing it instead of just reminiscing about it. He stormed out of the restaurant that night, but that wasn't the end of it. Over the next few weeks, his behavior showed me exactly why his ex had chosen such a calculated approach to ending things with him. First, he started showing up at my apartment unannounced. Your ex probably didn't appreciate unexpected visits either, I said the first time, not opening the door beyond the security chain. Wasn't that one of her perfect boundaries you kept mentioning? He left, but not before warning me that we weren't finished talking about this. Then came the item hostage situation. He texted me, claiming he had found some of my belongings at his place, including my grandfather's vintage watch that I distinctly remembered leaving on my own nightstand. He insisted I needed to come over in person to get them, saying we should talk things through face-to-face like mature adults. The irony of him trying to manipulate a meeting while preaching about maturity wasn't lost on me. I responded by texting him, interesting. I've been recording the locations of my valuables ever since you started comparing me to your ex. I have dated photos of my watch at my apartment. Would you like me to involve the police in retrieving my lost items? The watch mysteriously appeared in my mailbox the next day. But his most entitled move came during a dinner party at our mutual friend's house. He had convinced them to invite both of us, not telling me he would be there. He arrived with a folder full of printed photos and screenshots of us together, along with a PowerPoint presentation, yes, really, analyzing our relationship and listing all the ways we could fix things. In front of everyone, he tried to stage what he called a relationship intervention. He had even prepared a schedule for how we would rebuild our connection, including mandatory daily phone calls and weekly date nights where I would learn from his ex's best practices. Our friends looked mortified as he started her presentation. This was his power play. He thought that in front of an audience, I would either have to go along with his plan or look like the unreasonable one. Instead, I calmly took out my phone and played a recording from our last dinner together, where he had spent 10 minutes describing how his ex's method of breaking up was the most mature and considerate way possible. Then I played clips from several other occasions where he had praised her breakup approach, followed by a clip of his numerous comparisons between me and her. Since you're so fond of presentations, I said, here's evidence of why this relationship ended. Now, would you like to explain to everyone why it's mature and considerate when she does it, but unacceptable when I follow the exact same approach? He left the dinner party in tears, but his attempts at manipulation weren't over. A week later, he orchestrated what I can only describe as a bizarre, recreated date scenario. He reserved the exact table at the French restaurant where I had broken up with him and asked our mutual friends to convince me to meet them there for a group dinner. When I arrived, only he was there, wearing the same suit from our first date, with a slideshow ready on his tablet comparing our relationship timeline with his previous relationship's successful milestones. I simply turned around and left, but he followed me to the parking lot, insisting that I wasn't following the proper relationship resolution protocol that his ex had established. I was supposed to give him exactly 3 chances to fix things because that's what happened in his previous relationship before the final breakup. His next move was to contact my brother through social media, trying to get him to arrange a chance encounter at our family's annual barbecue. He sent my brother a detailed document titled, "Why Your Sister Needs to Follow the Proven Breakup Recovery Steps." My brother, who had heard plenty about his behavior, responded by blocking him and sending me screenshots of the conversation. The entitlement reached a new level when he created a shared calendar invite series titled Relationship Restoration Timeline and somehow got my email from a mutual friend. He scheduled daily reflection sessions and weekly improvement meetings for the next 6 months, each with detailed agendas comparing his ex's conflict resolution methods to our current situation. I responded by setting up an email filter to automatically decline all his calendar invites with a message: "Sorry, I'm busy taking tips from your ex on how to maintain boundaries post-breakup." The final straw came when he showed up at my gym. He had never been a member there and clearly signed up just to orchestrate another accidental meeting. He approached me while I was on the treadmill, armed with yet another folder of relationship improvement strategies based on his ex's workout routines and how couples should sweat together for better bonding. I stopped my workout, looked at him directly, and said loud enough for nearby people to hear, "You know what I learned from all your stories about your ex? That she was right to end things with someone who can't respect boundaries. I'm calling gym management now to report harassment, and my next call will be to discuss a restraining order. Would you like to explain to a judge why you're stalking me with PowerPoint presentations about your ex-girlfriend's habits?" That finally seemed to break through. The color drained from his face as he realized how his behavior might look to outsiders, especially in a legal context. He quickly left the gym, and I haven't seen him since. Though I heard through mutual friends that he's been telling people he's taking a break from dating to focus on personal growth. It's been 3 months now, and I've processed enough to see things clearly. While my method of breaking up might seem calculated, it was necessary to break through his bubble of idealized past relationships. Sometimes, the only way to show someone their toxic behavior is to let them experience it from the other side. As for me, I'm focusing on moving forward. I started dating again. And the first thing I look for now is how someone talks about their past relationships. It's amazing how much you can learn about a person from the way they handle their relationship history. And yes, I've kept all the recordings and documentation of his behavior, not to use them, but as a reminder to trust my instincts when something feels off in future relationships. Make sure to like and subscribe.